Welcome to another session. I think it just went live now. I will start all over again. Good afternoon and good evening to all of my audiences who have joined in here for another session on handling domestic violence. Thank you for coming in. And our endeavor here is to make more and more people aware of what's happening around domestic violence. And especially the reason why we have chosen this topic under Beyond Pinks is we have seen a sudden surge of domestic violence cases during the pandemic time. And sometimes we don't even know if there is a kind of a violence. And violence does not necessarily mean it's a physical abuse, it could be in various forms and fashions. So, our agenda today is basically to bring more awareness and understand what's happening in your lives and how you're going to take charge and move forward. And for that, we have a very nice, eminent panel out here. And I am very pleased and thanking all the panelists out here. And Vasudha, Ekta, and Purna. Thank you all of you to come in for this session. It really means a lot that you're taking out time for me and for my audience. Uh, I would like to specially mention Ekta from Invisible Scars, who's partnered with us, and she's working with us on not only building the concepts of what we are wanting to do on this space, and also helping us with the panelists and everything else possible in this space. Thank you so much, Ekta. And she runs an organization called Invisible Scars. Her entire life journey right now is to work with women who have some kind of pain or suffering in their lives. So very noble cause that you are taking off. Ekta. Really, thank you so much for doing what you're doing and being a part of our journey. And introducing the panelists and the concept of what we are going to cover here, I would hand it over to Ekta to take it up from here. Ekta. Over to you.
Thank you, Tanuja, for the very kind introduction. So very warm welcome to our very senior panelists, Vasudha ji and Purnima. Both are very established names in Hyderabad and Telangana ecosystem. I would think, Tanuja, it would be a good thing to introduce them before we actually start talking. So it would set the context for what people should expect before I actually start asking them the questions. So Tanuja, can you come back in, say and do a quick intro of our panelists?
All right. So
Before we
Purnima, yeah. So I have Purnima. I've known Purnima for 6, 7 years or maybe longer now. She's a part of an organization which is a law firm called Fox and Mundell. Very senior person in the law field, so to say, in the lawyer fraternity. And Purnima has been a part of CII, and CII runs a women's wing called IWIN, Indian Women Network. She's a co-chair there. She's doing a lot of work for women in different segments. For the empowerment of women, we do a lot of work around women and leadership and empowerment. So she's not an unknown name in this space when it comes to women, and a lot of tons of experience that she brings in that space. So thank you, Purnima, for joining in for this wonderful session that we have together.
My pleasure, Tanuja.
And Vasudha actually needs no introduction. I will fall short of words because you just need to type Vasudha Nagaraj and you'll see tons of videos you will see around any law pertaining to women that she's kind of working on, from property to divorce to any other thing that you can imagine. And she's been a social activist and uh, how do I say it? It's the voice of people, so to say, in terms of bringing larger causes in the forefront. So if you want to know more about Vasudha, you simply have to type her name on YouTube, and you will see, like, that's what I was doing while I was looking up for you, Vasudha. So
Thank you.
yeah. So same thing with Ekta. She comes with tons of experience in the law field. So we have three legal experts who are right here. So
I'm not a legal expert, no.
You're not a legal expert, but you sound like one, I would say, in terms of, the length and breadth of work that you kind of do. So thank you very much for joining in. And Ekta, maybe you could start with the context and the questions here.
Right, 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 right. Thank you so much, Tanuja. So just kind of getting straight to the context, because we know that if we were to introduce every panelist, it would actually take half our day. For that, we have such accomplished people today. Now, moving on. What we kind of wanted to achieve with today's session was, I have this support group which is called Invisible Scars, and a lot of domestic abuse survivors, they keep reaching out to me. One very very common issue that I come across all the time, it is the fact that when do I report, when is the right time for me to speak up. Now, reporting is just the next step, so maybe if we retrace our steps back, a lot of times people who come to me, they don't even know what they are facing. So how do I tell you whether it's right to report, it's not right to report, if you've not understood where you are, or what you're facing? So probably my first question I probably start with Purnima ji, is that how do I know what I'm facing? And of course, the next question logically comes to, when do I report? But how do I know what I'm facing?
So, thank you so much, Ekta. First, I want to mention that we have to understand what domestic violence, what violence means, what domestic violence means. The moment we hear the word domestic violence, we believe it is about beating up. But it goes much larger than that. It is not just about physical harm. It can be any sort of abuse, which is emotional abuse, mental, physical, any act which is, a sort of violating a woman in a mental in on the mental plane, physically. If you see the Domestic Violence Act and you see the definition, it is anything that endangers the health, safety, limb, or well-being. And well-being is a very very wide term. So I first want you to understand that the moment we say domestic violence, it's not about that one slap. You see, when we talk about, for example, there was that movie very running, where very nicely it gave a message of saying no. But that was related with a violent act, but there could be subtle forms also. So now you have to understand, it all boils down first to inculcating a sense of self-worth in our girls. I'm talking first about women, then I will talk about all. But first, I'm talking about women because when we talk, see, the larger percentage in our society, unfortunately, who face such acts are those who are women. And therefore, the conversation that we are having is largely centering around women. So that need to create a self-worth within that woman is something that has to be there right from the time we are bringing up our girls. When we bring up our girls with that self-worth, we know what is acceptable to us and what is not acceptable to us. There, a little bit of tempering is needed. Of course, sometimes we may believe that we would like certain things certain ways. It may not happen. That's a practical thing. But nobody has the right to violate you, to demean you, or to make you feel that you're not worthy. Right? So any such act that is violating you as a person, you have to learn to say no. Now, to your question, Ekta, reporting is very different to raising your voice. Raising your voice can happen within your four walls. And reporting is something, of course, you have to report when it is something which is absolutely not acceptable. It has to be reported. You must take the due course, the due protection available to you under law. But when do you do it? Timing is something very personal, right? So timing, situations are different. Everything is very dynamic. What may happen with one woman may not happen with another woman. What may happen with a young girl may not happen with another young girl. And mind you, domestic violence is not just with a man woman in an intimate relationship. It can be anywhere. It can be in any household. It can be in any relationship. It can be in your dating as well, right? You have to draw the line as to what is acceptable to you and what is not acceptable to you. When something is not acceptable to you, you have to say no. Unfortunately, our girls, we as women, are responsible for not making our girls understand that they have a right to say no, right? And they have, that no has to be respected, that no has to be accepted. So when do you say that? It is personal to you. When you believe it is crossing a certain line and violating your personal self, emotional, physical, and all round well-being, you must stand up and say no. Now there is what we say, harassment and sexual harassment and things like these words are used. You must understand everything stems from that one thing, your inability to say no. So I think the first step is say no when it is not acceptable to you in the first instance itself. And if it still continues despite you saying no, it is the time to report. I hope that answers your question, Ekta.
Perfect, perfect. You actually brought up a lot of very, very valid points. The most being for me inculcating a sense of self worth. I think so. My website Invisible Stars, we have this whole page where we have this whole dialogue box of what parents say to their children. So we've kind of kept it. Parents say to girls and parents say to boys, and so you will see a lot of, and these are all real dialogues from real people. And there's so many things we do unconsciously to bring down the self-worth of girls in our families, and maybe not consciously, but you would say things like, this is not how girls sit, this is not how they talk, you shouldn't go out at this time, you should come home at this time, if you're talking to a boy, this is what you are, if you're playing games, this is how you should be a virgin. I mean, I think we have a whole booklet of instructions that we give our girls the day they are born. And from the second they start breathing, we have some instruction to them. And that kind of leads me to the same follow-up question, Vasudha ji. When do I know that this is beginning to hurt me? So I can maybe, of course, Indian girls are never taught to speak up. That's very unfortunate. We're always told adjust karo, it's okay, keep quiet, घर की बात बात नहीं करनी चाहिए. And I feel that domestic abuse is nothing but a violation of human rights. And why do we have all of these things that lead us not to be able to recognize that this is the time, it's getting bad from here. Here is where I need to stop.
Thank you, Ekta. Thank you, Purnima, and thank you for inviting me to this forum. I think we should be talking about domestic violence in as many forums as possible. Now, this question about when do we recognize it? I think all women know when, it's when you are incited, or when you are slapped or beaten or put down, or there are so many ways in an intimate space in which you can be put down. Women know very well, women suffer it, women know it. But the point is, when do you say no? And there are a huge range of factors which allows you to decide whether to recognize it or not. Whether to, you are recognizing it, but whether to give it any status.
Yes.
It's only when you give the issue that suffering a status, then you want to talk about it to your parents, to your friend, to your neighbor, to your children, and then comes that great police station or the court. So, what is that? What is that space? First of all, I think most women do not want to recognize it because of economics, the economics of the situation. Often we are not earning, we don't have enough money, there are children's education and parental support, whether the parents are the natal family is supportive enough. So all these issues actually come together in the woman's mind, whether she wants to accept it or not. It is there, the suffering is there inside. Every day, every moment of your life, you know that you're suffering, but whether to give it a status or not. And most importantly, what we should teach our young women is, do whatever you want to do,
but please, please earn your living.
Yeah.
Don't ever give up on that. There is, I mean, you fall in love. Okay, it's love is so beautiful, or you get married, and generally it is the man's job, the man's transfer, man is going for a green card, or man is going here. All the time it is man is going here and there. Whereas we women seem to be stuck, you know. So
Yeah.
in this man going here, man going there, we end up losing our jobs,
Right,
we
right.
end up taking a break, and sometimes, and in god forbid, at that point if a child also arrives, then your break is for 2 to 3 years. And several middle class women I have found being reluctant to go back to the job market, the employment market, because you will not get the same job back. You are put at a lower rung of the job. So there are and not having good crash facilities. So there are several of these issues by which women stop earning. In fact, that's the worst part. For you to recognize your own, the violence that you're suffering, it's very important to have money in your hands. There's nothing like economic independence. In fact, once you have economic independence, you take this decision, you recognize, you take the decision slightly more quickly than those women who don't have that economic independence.
Right. Very, very extremely valid point. And unfortunately, I might deviate a little bit right now. When we talk about economic independence, a lot of survivors, they would approach me and they will say things like, "Can't you explain to my husband? Can't you send him for counseling? Will he not change when the children come?" So there are so many questions like this. We call them the myths of domestic abuse. When a child comes, things will get better. And it takes so much of effort to try and explain that, of course, you have to be financially independent. There is no discussion around it. That has to be the priority of, I think, every single girl or every single woman is to be financially independent. But, I oftentimes wonder, there's no need to be a martyr for you and say that I will improve him, I will work upon him. So those are what are those uh, situations that hold women back? I think it's their only thought is their thought process, and I kind of wanted to dwell a little bit on it because conditioning, to according to me, plays a very large part in making women in India who they are. And the way they face the world or the way they see things in the world is largely driven by the conditioning that they are raised with. And so maybe a couple of lines, maybe Vasudha ji, you could, and then I'd go to Purnima after that.
See, definitely, Ekta, there is conditioning. But I also feel that marriage is an institution in which you invest so much. You have seen your parents investing tons of money for all those marriage expenses, and then you have your children. So, when you want to break out of a marriage, you're thinking about all this. I mean, there's all certain, and there's also a comfort space in the marriage. There's a comfort space. There is one man. There are children. Children are saying, "Well, daddy, daddy," whatever, and all that. So there is a house. There's this entire comfort space. To break out of this comfort space is not easy. One is conditioning. Yes, completely agree with it. Two is we are all used to our comfort spaces. And so are women who are suffering.
Right.
They are used to the comfort space. The neighborhood, the child's school will be, I mean, close to the house where she's living with her husband. So often, oh my God, now how do I move the child from this school to another school? So that will be the biggest problem. So there are several issues, the jobs, the school, the bank, the vegetable market, the maid who is like, who you like your maid, and oh, if I now move out of this house, I'm going to lose that maid. So it's these kind of issues, they impact you. So it is so difficult for women to break out of this comfort space, to challenge the conditioning, and to say, look, this I'm not going to accept. So when people say that women walk out of marriages so easily, I keep thinking that each and every woman who walks into my office tells me this, a dozen problems that are there which is preventing her from walking out of the marriage. So I keep forcing her, come on, let's look for a different school. Go, let's look for another maid. I'm sure there'll be more maids available. So these are the kind of issues. Forget about legal rights and all that. We're talking about maids and bank
Yes.
accounts and creche facilities.
Correct, correct. I completely agree. So sometimes I think it is important to break out of that comfort space, like you said. But again, Purnima, coming back to you, so I want to break out of the comfort space, right? I am very determined. But what do you think it is that stops me from speaking up? I mean, we recently did
Yeah.
a campaign called Unsilent. So Unsilent was about the various facets of domestic abuse. We spoke about how no child should ever be abused, how it is important not to, face emotional abuse, things like that. We spoke about a lot of things. So when is the time to become unsilent? And how do we, so again, I probably am going on the same question again and again, but I kind of want to know where is that time where it hits me that or what is that I should look out for. I sometimes tell women, do this exercise. How many more years do you want to live? If you're going to live, say, an average life of 75 and you have 40 more years to go, is this the quality of life you want for yourself? So when is that point where I say, okay, now I'm no longer going to take this, I want to really walk out, and what do I do then? So it's no longer should I speak.
Yeah, so Ekta, I'm going to, before I answer that question of yours, I'm going to add on a little more to what Vasudha just said. And I'm not going to talk, Vasudha beautifully put the day-to-day issues that actually face a woman before she takes a decision to move on. But I think there is also another layer around it, which is the social layer, which cannot be ignored. And that social layer comes from our own very own maternal homes, our homes where we grow up, as women. See, the way we carry with us a lot of stereotypes in our society. One cannot ignore the fact that these stereotypes are there. मर्द को दर्द नहीं होता है, औरत को बाहर नहीं जाना चाहिए इस time. There are so many other, so many cliched terms that are there. And the whole thought process of marriage, it's a beautiful institution, but and in our scriptures and the way it's written, it's a man and a woman coming together. And not in India, they say it's not just the man and the woman, it's the family is also coming together. But now the way it has evolved over time, it has the kanyadan is a beautiful process, or a beautiful term, but the way it is looked at is like giving away your daughter and forgetting about it. And there were families where it was expected that the daughter would not come back. It was, for the longest time, there was a statement that if you've gone into your marriage house of marriage, the only time you leave is when you die. So things like these were said at one point in time, not today, but ages back. You'll see the generations before us had these sort of, a man cannot drink water in his daughter's marital home. So these were the stereotypes which were stuffed into our heads. And what happens is, when the girl is growing up, she's seen probably her mother living like that, or her aunts living like that. Now, this girl, when she grows up, is forced to go into another house. If she doesn't have that economic support, she doesn't have the support to be, sometimes economic is not enough. The social pressures are so much that, you worry about what your father will think, or how your father is going to reply to the society, or social norms around you. So many things are there. It's a very complex issue. And therefore, this is not something that will happen overnight. But I think each one of us has to take that pledge that we will actually try and, consciously move away from social stereotypes, where we say women wear pink, men wear blue, and, women cannot speak loudly in a restaurant and order, but a man can shout and scream. And these are very subtle and a very basic thought process which needs to change. Till this doesn't change, a woman will keep asking this question, when is the right time? Because no time will be right for her. That right time will only come when she has reached a point where she says I don't care about what anybody has to say. Either this is it, or from here I will break completely. It is not right for a woman to come to that point, because by that point she's become a victim of anxiety, depression. She's probably low on self-esteem, lost all her self-worth. What is the life? Then she has to rebuild herself, which is another process. And if she doesn't find the support, she will probably crumble completely. So the problem lies in the way you and I and everyone respond to our social conditioning and the stereotypes. So I think there has to be a positive change from today, and should be every day, that each one of us commits to ourselves that we will move away from the stereotypes. Now coming to your second question, that when is the right time? It's very subjective, very personal. And the right time is the moment you feel this is not right and you speak up for yourself. Once you speak up for yourself, if you are respected, then there is some value in making an effort. If your speaking up is not respected, that is the right time. You don't have to wait for another round of bashing up or another round of emotional, being treated very badly, or being put down all the time about the kind of food you're making. Or if your speaking up once is respected, there is some hope that everything will be saved. But if you speak up once and you are made to feel bad about speaking up, then you have to move on. And that is something that needs to be understood, because there is no set sort of standard here. The circumstances change from person to person, individual requirements change from person to person, individual risk appetite changes from person to person, right? So to your answer, I don't know if that's answered your question, but I think the benchmark should be, have I been respected when I spoke up?
Yes. I think that's a very very valid point. I'm actually going to steal that for one of my probably write ups. That's a very very interesting point. Yes, when you speak up, are you being respected for it? Because I think everything starts to happen when you actually speak up and you say no, I don't like this, or I don't want to do this, or this is not okay. Is when the problem actually starts. So assuming I've understood that I'm in a violent relationship or in an abusive relationship with someone. One of the important things I wanted to understand is, how do we approach people who can help, and what is out there? Because like you said, I've come across a lot of women who have stereotypes about how the lawyer is going to treat them, how they are going to go to a lawyer and the lawyer is going to fleece them. So there are a lot of stereotypes that exist. So what do we expect when we reach out and finally speak up, and who are the people we can reach out to?
Ekta, I would say is that question to me or to Vasudha?
Anyone can answer it. Purnima, go ahead.
Okay, I will briefly answer, but I think Vasudha will be the best person to answer that question. But I will just take a shot at it. And I would say that today's ecosystem has become very mature. Today, if I look at it holistically, we have very, very good NGOs and organizations like yours, Ekta, where you are actually there to help. There is very little that you are looking to come back to you. You're giving, and the giving is selfless. So you are there to help, and you are looking at it pragmatically and practically, not just to sort of fight for a woman's right, but to ensure that that woman has a good life. So I would say that the ecosystem today is very mature. Professionals like Vasudha ji are there, who are there to sort of guide you, and with the immense experience that they have today, the professionals. There are many women, so if you're not comfortable going to a man, you can go to a woman professional lawyer, and the lawyers are very, very mature today, very experienced women are in this field. You can reach out to them. Having said that, I would also like to mention there are men there who are very supportive. And you should not actually look at the gender when you're coming to a professional, because that is what a professional is. A professional is only a professional. And always take feedback. If you have any doubt, take feedback, but go to a good professional who understands your issues, understands how to work with the system, and there are many out there. Then coming to the government has become very sensitive to women issues today. Of course, you have the various acts. You have the Domestic Violence Act. You have the changes in the CRPC, where 354A, 354, earlier what was happening, it was just outrage of the modesty of a woman. And that was being abused in the IPC. It was just that one clause, that one provision. And that was being abused because what was happening, nobody understood whether it was a woman or the woman. Means if it is the woman in question who's
Purnima has gone off.
Purnima, we lost you for a second there.
Yeah. So to cut so I'll just say it in short. The government is also doing a lot. They are making the relevant changes in the acts to ensure that the acts are more consistent with the requirements today. In fact, your new labor code that is coming up is talking about availability of creche facilities. So and all these are being taken care of, and the police has become very sensitive. So, there's a concept of zero FIR. You can file an FIR in any police station. There is a concept of, your whatever your statement is has to be taken by a woman officer or a woman magistrate or a district magistrate, or, the provisions are there. And if there is no woman available, then an NGO woman can also come in and take, provided certain conditions are met. So things like these. So it is becoming, the laws are evolving, the provisions are all there. Need is to go to the right professional. Right. So I think with that, I will hand over to Vasudhaji.
Purnima, where do you find the right professional? That is the big question. It's not easy, Purnima. It's not easy. We women, when I tell a woman, she says that this man, my husband, is going to come in the middle of the night, bang on my door. So I tell her, immediately call the police station. It's not easy. The police may come once or may not respond. Then I tell women, when I tell women to go and file a complaint in the police station, I tell them, now wait, you have to make a minimum of 5 to 10 visits to the police station to get your FIR. So don't get disappointed the very first time you walk into the police station and expect an FIR. Sorry, it doesn't work out. So right in the beginning, a good professional, according to me, is a person, a lawyer who tells the woman, please make 6 visits and only then you have a right to complain. It's sad to say this. It's very, very sad to say this, but that is the state of affairs. A maintenance case. I don't have money. I have walked out of the house. The children's fees has to be paid. Please file a maintenance case for me, madam. Yes, my dear, I will file a maintenance case for you, but don't lay your eggs in this court basket. It will take 2 years minimum to get maintenance. And in COVID times, courts have closed down. In fact, the worst thing about COVID times is courts have closed down. All the cases have stopped being heard. Women in bad marriages, the story is endless. It's endless. What happened? What was the story behind the zero FIR? Disha's case, where the police station, when the parents went to that particular police station, they said, this is not my jurisdiction. Go to another police station. That is when the zero FIR came. So our police stations, our courts, I don't want to blame them because they also suffered terrible infrastructure lapses. Our courts are overburdened. We have about 10 family courts today, but each family court is handling more than 1,500 cases a year. I see family court judges sitting from morning till evening and yet not able to complete their roster for the day. So a divorce case takes 5 to 6 years for a hearing. A criminal case of domestic violence takes 3 to 4 years to be heard. And there are good judges and there are bad judges. There are judges who are sensitive. When I say good and bad, what I expect is sensitivity. See, don't treat us like beggars. Please treat us with respect. When we come before you, we are coming to you for justice. So treat us with respect. And that respect, one hand, the woman doesn't get respect at home. That is one thing. Second thing is you go to the court, again, you're treated like a worm. Because judges say we don't have the time to speak respectfully to all of you. So these are the issues. So when women come to me, I tell them, yes, let us file for proceedings in the court, but that should be a parallel track in your life. Don't make it the main track in your life. And don't put all your eggs in that basket.
Right.
No, that it's not going to work in the Indian legal system. It's not going to work. Keep it as a parallel track. You're very angry. You want to challenge your husband. Yes, let us challenge this man. He has ill-treated you very badly, yes, let us challenge him, but put this as a parallel track. You should be earning, you should be looking after your children, you should be exercising, you should take care of yourself. It's only then that I'm going to file a case for you. In fact, that is my motto for women. Keep this on a parallel track. If you are going to say that this court is going to be the final arbiter of justice in my life, then you're disappointed. So, women out there who are listening to me, please put legal proceedings. Yes, it's happening. It will go on. Don't put all your hopes in that, because there are different ways of resolving the suffering that you have suffered. It's not just the law, it's not just the court. So there are different things. There is God, there are relatives, there is family, there are friends, there are your children. So all of them together help you resolve these issues. It takes time, but it helps you resolve.
Very, very interesting. Some very, very interesting points that have come out of what Masudaji just said. So the double victimization thing, that you're already being mistreated at home, and then you go to the police station, and then they don't talk to you properly, you're disrespectful, or you go to the legal system, you don't know which lawyer to look out for, who's the right person, who's not the right person. One of the things that I would
Yeah,
like
Ekta, I would just like to say, so that I don't miss the moment here, and very well said, Vasudhaji. Whatever you said is absolutely correct. That is unfortunately the reality of the system. But that reality should not deter a woman from speaking out and seeking her legal recourse, whatever is needed. You should not think that if you do go down that route, you will have to go through this and therefore wait on till it's worse and you have no other option but to go through this. So this is there, as Vasudhaji very rightly said, this whole issue is there. It is complex. It is never easy. When you fight for yourself, it is never easy. It's equally not easy if a man was to go for other litigations. It is not easy. But that does not mean that you do not stand up for yourself. So don't let the system's, deficiencies dissuade you from speaking up and going out there and seeking. There are professionals, and Vasudhaji said, where are the good professionals? I know one sitting right here who gave you the absolute right advice, that coming out of a bad marriage or coming out of a violent situation does not only mean going to court and getting what you are looking for. It is not so easy as just going there, telling the judge, and the judge will just give you what you're asking for. It is a process. That entire process has to be followed. One day you feel you've got what you want. One day you'll feel, oh my God, why did I even go through it? So yes, it's a process, takes its time. So healing is not just going to court and getting your, revenge, or getting your alimony, or getting the financial security. Look within yourself, look within the support system you have. If you don't have support system, you are unfortunate. You have to work towards creating your support system, but you have to live your life. If you don't live your life happily, if you don't go out there, make friends, don't look after your children, you're just relying on the court battle or relying on the system will leave you a very, very sad person. So you should ensure that when you do take that call, you realize that it's going to be a holistic journey and take it forward accordingly. But don't refuse to say no just because you're scared of taking on. You can take it on.
Right. I think that's a very, very, very important point that you made, Purnima. Thank you for bringing that up. I just wanted to take out the time to cite something that happened recently. So someone had reached out to me for help on her domestic abuse case, and she's based in Jamshedpur. And like Vasudha ji said, the courts are closed. So she was given an interim maintenance order, which was not implemented because of the lockdown. And so this girl, she was struggling, and one fine day she just got up. She's a very courageous person, not she's just a graduate. She doesn't have a proper job for many years, but very courageous. She just one fine day, very angry, got up and wrote to the Supreme Court. She said, look, I'm in trouble. I don't have money. The court, my maintenance order has come through. I'm not being given any help. Please tell me what to do. And actually, the case got converted into a PIL, and we are looking forward to fighting that PIL now. And it was just sheer courage. She is somebody who's been beaten by the system. She's been there for 3 years. She's been struggling with her case. Her husband has a very criminal sort of a background. Despite court orders, he doesn't pay her anything, and all of that. And this courageous young mother of two, she went out there and she wrote. She said, "I will write to whoever I think I want to write to." So I think what is very important to what I wanted to highlight from this case is that uh, don't be scared of speaking up, because there is always somebody there to listen to you. It may not be the court or the police immediately, but there is always somebody to listen to you. And one of the other things that I'd like to bring up in this conversation is we have started a domestic abuse relief fund. We have put a cap of 20,000 rupees per survivor, but we are helping people with economic relief, temporary economic relief for a period of 2 to 3 months, not more than that, but something to just give you the kickstart you require. If you are facing financial troubles, you don't have a place to stay, you don't want to go into a shelter home because the government run shelter homes are not great. So we will help you. It's a slightly tedious process. We have a very long drawn form. We will ask for references, but it is there. It exists. There is always someone to help. So, like Purnima said, please don't hesitate in reaching out, because if you don't speak up at the right time, see, getting deterred by a case, if you don't speak up at the right time, there is this whole revenge FIR also that comes in. In one case, a man can file an FIR against his wife. He actually would record her when she was angry and irritated, and he went and filed an FIR saying that she harasses my mother, and none of it was true. So if you don't speak up at the right time, also you run this. You have this probability of running into something which is a revenge FIR, where you get to file a case before you even have the chance to speak up. So it's okay. But what I think Vasudha meant to tell all of you listening is that it is a process. Don't bank only on the legal
You're
process
breaking.
or
Ekam, you're breaking. Your voice is breaking.
is it better now? Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is much better. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think what Vasudha was trying to say is that, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Plan out things that you need. Ask professionals for help. Ask your friends for help. There is, the internet has tons of information. Don't be uninformed, because I think what's the worst thing is to be uninformed in an era of information, and not take informed decisions. So I think that's very, very important. Um, um, and of course, now going back to the session itself, one thing that we keep running into is women have difficulty in documenting. So I have seen that when there's a case of a man and a woman, and the man is being victimized, he will not hesitate in documenting, recording, taking screenshots. But when it comes to women, women hesitate documenting their cases. They don't know the right way to do it. So I think I will go to Vasudha first and then Purnima to you. That how do we document, and what is the importance of documenting what you're going through?
Uh, Ekta, thankfully today we have women who are more educated, and smartphones are really they record evidence like nobody else does. So conversations with husbands or taking screenshots of messages, women are doing it pretty well nowadays. I find women, I mean, we are getting educated. We are so educated today. We are in the job market. We are far more emotionally more stable and practical, and we know how to go about this world. So the problem is, this is where I come to the structural part of it. We are becoming competent, and men somewhere are still stuck. Unfortunately, men, this is what I'm telling you, men. You all are stuck with your mothers and grandmothers, whereas these women, we women, have grown up and earning money and doing things. So you have to come to terms with us. So if you don't come to terms with us, then you end up becoming insecure. You become suspicious of women. You feel that women are arrogant, and all that. So this is one setting why there is so much of incompatibility that is happening in marriages, and there's so much of violence. Violence is because women are challenging. Women are saying, I don't want to, I'm not going to be like what your mother was or my mother was. I'm not going to be. So that is where the violence is coming. So the thing is, today women are, with the given resources, the smartphone, women are able to record. Women are able to take, I mean, when she's beaten up, she says this and takes a photo like this. I was beaten up. He twisted my hand here. Mental violence, mental cruelty cannot be taken, but still, women, technology is coming to our help. So in that sense, we are able to document the violence that we are suffering, but it's also important for lawyers to even accept this evidence, to recognize this evidence. Sometimes I find the lawyer community not being competent enough to recognize this as evidence. I mean, there are legal procedures in which a recording in a phone or a screenshot of the phone has to be exhibited before the court. So I find lawyers not following the proper procedures sometimes, not being competent enough. So in terms of documenting, yes, there is some amount of documentation. For instance, about giving and taking of dowry. You have videos, you have photographs, you have all these things where the dowry is visible to people. Then people are now keeping checks or transferring money. There's so much of the digital print which is making sure that these things happen. But women still lose out on jewelry. Sometimes when they come running out of the house, you often leave your jewelry behind, you leave your certificates behind. So these things are there. They're still there. Yeah, I mean, this is not all women can do it. Again, like what Purnima was saying, it's a case to case to case to case. Each one's bravery, each one's presence of mind, each one's strategy is different. In fact, we need films, we need fiction to enable us to have these imaginations. What do you do? How do you walk out of a home? All our fiction and all our lovely whatever films or stories are all about nice families. Yes, we need our nice families and good family, but how do we even walk out of the home? Be cool about it. Learn to plan it. Don't be stupid. Don't be vindictive. But we need all this imagination to enter our heads, whereas we have so less of it, so little of it. So we are floundering each time. Every woman has to reinvent the wheel. That is the sad part of it.
Correct. Totally agree. Totally agree. So Purnima, what about you? What do you think? Why is documentation important? And I think one point that Vasudha ji said, that documentation in terms of how you want to take the recording and things like that. I think one very important critical thing that happens is women don't call. So I always tell them, call a helpline, call 100, write an email. These are also different ways of documenting your case. So what do you think, Purnima? And does documentation really help as a lawyer? Probably.
Absolutely. And what Vasudha ji has said is bang on. Girls today are much more alert. They're using technology to sort of create a trail, and I won't call it documentation, but create a trail and have the sort of evidences that are needed. They are very. I'll give you an example of a case, but before that, I will step back a little. Where the problem comes. Many girls or many women, and I will talk about two age groups. I will talk about the age group of 40 to 30, or rather 45 to 30, who are still in that transition stage, who have a lot of their old thought process and are trying to grapple with the new thought process, and the age group of 18 to 30, which is a much newer, girls with a more radical thought and better imagination and more adept with technology, and who've probably gone there and explored life a little. So these girls are, smart enough. They know what the smartphone is a huge resource in their hands, and they know how to sort of get evidences, how to ensure that they have something like your WhatsApp messages. But the 30 to 45, 50 is still suffering. They are not so adept at all this. So this lot is still having a problem. And usually what happens when the problem doesn't start later, problem starts initially itself. The moment a woman comes into her marital home, she sort of gives up on everything. So the man takes charge of the finances, takes charge of the account. She doesn't even know. And you believe me when I say that I'm talking about very well educated girls, ladies who say, I've never been to the bank. I've never had to do this. Now I have to do this. I don't know how to handle it. They just give up. It's like, now I'm just going to, wear nice clothes, look nice, go out to my kitties. I'll do this, I'll do that. But no knowledge whatsoever about the other important nuances of living. And when you have given up on that, you have cut your ability to take a decision to half, because every decision that is being taken is a yes decision. You cannot say no. It is your husband's decision, or the larger ecosystem there that takes the decision. And it's very rarely, very few women can then say no. Those women who say no will not have a problem. But the women who never say no is where they have a problem. Because when they do come to a break point, and unfortunately that point of break is terrible, when they come to that point, they know nothing. So they are totally at a loss. They are starting right from banking, dealing with their own account. They don't even know how to get their statement and see really where has the money gone. So documentation, I would say, comes much later. First, you have to learn to, first understand marriage is not the end of living. You have not attained nirvana just because you've got married. Marriage is the starting of a relationship where two partners should come together and respect one another. Most important thing, love and everything at all, I would say, flies out of the window on the 4th or the 5th day of marriage. It is about respect. If you cannot respect one another for what they are, then this marriage will not last. Another 5-6 years, it will break apart. So it's about respect. And respect should be allowing one another their space. And allowing space should also mean allowing one another to know what they want to do with what they have. You should not, I'm not saying that you do what you want. You should know that you would like to do something, but confer, come to a mutual understanding, and then do it or not do it. It should be a call that you take after taking your own decision with your partner, with the people involved in the ecosystem, right? So this itself, this one limb is completely cut off when women just come in and they give up charge of their lives. I'm not saying have charge on other people's lives. Don't control anybody. That's not right. No, you don't have to lose control, right? So that is where the bigger problem happens. Second, to your point, what you mean by documentation, as I'm understanding, creating proofs and evidences. That comes much later when things have soured, right? So you let it come to that point when things start souring because you've completely given up control. And now you have to make your evidences. So yes, today women are much smarter. I'll give you an example. I do a lot of sexual harassment at workplace cases. And there was this young girl, very young girl. She must have been 23, 24. She joined as a trainee in an organization. And her boss, super boss, was trying to suggest to her that, I'm going to go for an outing, work outing. You join me as well. And tried telling her this has happened before, etc., etc. That girl would converse with him. After a point, she was very scared initially. I'm talking to a senior. How can I? But then she realized there was no way getting out of it. So she started recording she would actually speak to him, get him to, actually accept that this is what he wants. And she recorded everything and promptly sent it to the complaints committee. Right? So she was a smart girl. She had the resource. She had the presence of mind. She realized that just by listening to him, it's not going to get her anywhere. Initially, first few times, she was very scared. She would tell her friends, I don't want to go with him. I don't want to go to the offside, this and that. But then she realized she has to survive in this organization. So it's survival of the fittest, right? We are in that, at the end of the day, everywhere it's survival of the fittest. It's not just in the jungle. So her fitness was never to be the senior, but her fitness was her presence of mind. And she got it. She made sure that man left, and she continues to work in that organization. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, to what Vasudha ji said, today women are much, much better equipped to have the proof, to make the proof, to sort of put it all together. And women are doing it, but not all women are still doing it. Women who have let go. See, I always say one thing. There are the laws, there is protection, there are remedies, but are the needy getting it? No, not all women who need it are getting. There are women who don't need it, who are abusing it, which unfortunately results in the system getting clogged. By there are too many cases, and they know, these women, they have the resources to get that kind of legal support where you can go into the loopholes and play with the loopholes and keep matters pending for 7 years, 10 years. Take the in-laws to the police station for domestic violence when they have never even done, and this happens some 15 years down the line in their marriage, when they are suddenly they realize they want to walk out of the marriage. There is that also going on. We cannot close our eyes to that, right? So I would say the essence of this is, don't lose control of your life at any stage of your marriage. Marriage is not meant for it's not a power dynamics. It is not one man controlling the woman, or a woman controlling the man. It is a beautiful relationship about two people coming together. So don't lose yourself, don't lose control of your life, become in union in the true sense. And of course, stay smart, stay alert, and use technology to your, to the best possible. Courts are looking at, as Vasudha ji rightly said, WhatsApp messages, etc. are, in fact, now notices can be served on WhatsApp as well in the COVID times. So there is a lot of, due given to technology today, and keep that in mind and make documentation wherever needed.
That was fabulous, Purnima. Thank you very much, because when we do talk to people and we do tell them what they need to do, so I think this is general for all women. Don't share all your, don't fall so much in love that you share all your social media passwords and your bank account passwords. You can have a locker of your own. You can have your own email ID whose password you don't share with your spouse. You don't have to share 100% of your uh, every aspect of your life, especially your online life with your spouse. There's no need. You should have certain things which are private to you, and if he's a smart and he's a mature spouse, he will respect that privacy. In a lot of homes, the spouse does not even touch your phone. They will give you that much of respect not to even touch your phone if not required. So I think we need to start saying no to a lot of things. Don't start off with something like this which you can't continue to do. And I think very valid point that just don't give up on everything. It's so important to keep that in mind for women, that love is something that you build upon. And so build upon it, take your time, live through it. Another very, very notable thing that Vasudha ji said is that, while women and girls are evolving, relationships are not evolving at the same speed. We are still looking at old ways of how a relationship should happen. And so in that context, I think a lot of people don't speak up, because there is always that thing of respecting relationships and how should I speak up and things like that. But isn't it important for anyone to speak up, to know about what are your rights according to the law? So I think probably I'll throw this question to Vasudha first. That what are my rights if I speak up? It may be slightly long drawn and all of those things, but what are my rights as a woman? It's a very cliched question, but very important, because
Ekta, it is already 5:05, and you're giving me 1 minute to answer that question. Difficult, Ekta. I think we should have another session to know your rights, because it's really a long essay type question which carries 50 marks. So it's a long question, and it also depends on each woman, where she's located, what she wants, whether she wants maintenance, whether she wants custody, whether she wants a divorce. Or there are women who want to hang on to a marriage in spite of all the violence. There are women who want to walk out of a marriage at I mean, one slap or one act of cruelty, women say, no, I'm not going to take this. So there are all kinds of women. And there are women who also say, who are smart enough to say that I'm not going to go to court. I'm not going to open out the litigation. Why should I open out the litigation? So just because women have not gone to the court or have not walked out, it also doesn't mean that they are simply keeping quiet. There's a very silent defiance that goes on in the home, there's so the this so-called wonderful home, this safe space called home is hardly safe. It's an extremely complex space, and our laws are not really addressing all these aspects of the home, particularly in terms of evidence. So I don't want to go into rights, but evidence. What counts as evidence within the four walls of the home? When you don't have independent witnesses, when you don't have documentary transactions, or when you don't have the evidence which law knows, So it has been such a struggle for the past 20 years to make the transactions within the home to be counted as evidence. So today we have moved ahead a little, but still, I mean, you are beaten up and you go to the police station 15 days later, having thought through the pros and cons of the situation. The scars of your beating has disappeared, man. What do you do? So things like that. So there's criminal law. There are matrimonial laws, family laws. Then there is the Domestic Violence Act. So, and women on the verge of walking out of the house, God forbid, they will read the internet, they will think there are plenty of laws. But I think they should also speak to lawyers or speak to friends who have gone through these court battles, and then you will know that yes, there is the fine spirit of the law, but every law has to be implemented in the court. And for every case in our Indian legal system, you need to, for everything that you say, you have to present it with evidence. There has to be backing, there has to be an eyewitness, or there has to be a circumstantial witness. You can't just go to the court and say, yes, this is what has happened to me. So it's a very complicated terrain. Really, Ekta, let us do one more session on this, about what it means to go to court, what are the remedies that are available to you, and how do you strategize about going to the court? Because not all the time going to court helps, because sometimes marriages can be saved, and that is where I get very angry with my lawyer community for promoting legal remedies when you shouldn't be promoting. You just give a break. That, for all we know, that man must have been going through a bad time in his life. For all, I'm a feminist lawyer, and yet I'm saying this. Sometimes just walking out of that hostile space and taking a break for 6 months helps. He also comes back. But in the meantime, if you go to a lawyer and you initiate a criminal case, it messes up your marriage, because once you have filed a criminal case, there's no walking back into the marriage. So there's a way in which each woman, you have to listen very intently about what she hopes for in the marriage. Does she think that there is no hope at all, or does she think that there is a break and then we can get back and give another chance? So men also change, women also change. There are all kinds of things that happen. So our legal remedies have to be how does one put it, have to be calibrated. There's a fine calibration required for each particular situation of suffering, incompatibility, and violence. That is how I would put it.
So Vasudha ji, thank you for that. One of the things that we tell people is that if you're going through a bad marriage, like you said, take a temporary separation. We also suggest counseling.
Yes.
And we say, don't put your spouse for counseling. First, you
Yes.
go.
Yes.
You don't have to be crazy or hormonal to go for counseling. You can simply just go for counseling if things are not working
Yes.
out. And
Yes.
there are so many resources available these days now. Everything is happening online, and so you can
Yes.
actually take help. And one of the things, but we really find a little unfortunate is a lot of times the family of the girl refuses to help her, or refuses to, I think that support is very, very necessary. So if she's going through a hard time, just give her some space in your home. Don't make things worse for her, and don't just keep pushing her back. I had this case where this mother followed her daughter to the police station, and she told the police, my daughter is lying about everything. And this girl would get beaten every day. So I told her, I said, the next time he's beating you, why don't you have your mother there? Have her there, and ek chanta tha usko bhi na. I was so angry with the mother because she would just follow this girl to the police station and tell the police she's lying. So families out there that are listening, please do keep this in mind, that you support your loved one. Give her some space. Everything doesn't, and I also don't promote divorce, because making a family is very difficult. But I think it's a very fine line between getting divorced and not getting divorced, and that's not the discussion here today. It's about what will I tolerate, what is my threshold, and what will I put up with. And it's also important for men to understand. I think one significant thing that came out is that there is so much evolution that has happened for women and girls in the way they approach life, that if you don't start changing yourself soon, we may be actually witness to a reverse kind of a situation. And I believe small, very small cases of women abusing men have also started to happen. um, but before we get to that, so Purnima, probably I wanted to get your views on this whole aspect of what happens when you reach out to the authorities.
I'll just add one point before just a minute. See, I think we need to speak to men much more, that within the women's movement, within all our activist circles, we are constantly talking to women, we're constantly listening to women. But I think men suffer their own insecurities. There's so much of livelihood issues, there are so much of structural inequality, employment issues, and men don't have friends. Actually, men don't have as many friends as women have. Men can't speak about the family spaces like the way women can talk about. So we should make an effort, at least some of us, to be able to address men's issues. Sorry, Purnima.
No,
thank you
absolutely.
so
I
much,
wanted to,
Purnima.
in fact, I
Yes.
wanted to say the same thing, actually. I was going to answer Ekta's question a little later and actually say that, what we have totally ignored is emotional mental health. And that is an issue on both sides. Remember, women go through their own biological life cycle where they get perimenopausal, menopausal, hormones change, and they tend to get fatigue syndrome comes, and things like those happen. Emotionally they get down, they get upset much faster, they may react much faster. Likewise, men go through their own issues of going out and earning and meeting, and you must bear in mind that these are two human beings, and these are very complex dynamics. A man to woman relationship is not a very simple relationship. What they, unfortunately, are benchmarks are set through the movies that we have watched over the years. The movies always show this beautiful romance, and then getting married, and then it all ends there. The 3 hours of the movie ends there, but life starts thereafter. And this is a complex relationship, man woman. You're living your next 70-80 years together, hopefully, and in that time you will go through so many life cycles. The woman goes through menopause, man goes through his own menopause, whatever you call it, equivalent of menopause, but they don't really have that kind of a biological symptom as women do, but they also go through their own emotional struggles. And therefore the importance of counseling is totally neglected. If counseling is taken at the right time, then a lot of relationships can be saved, and then it spirals out if you're not able to understand the emotional
Purnima dropped out.
Am I there? Can you hear me?
Purnima, you just dropped out for a couple of minutes. We can't see your video.
Oh, you can't see? I'm sure it'll come back. Just give me a moment. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm actually on my phone, and once in a while when the calls come in, it tends to get disconnected. So even if you can't see my video, I think I'll just continue saying what I was saying. So if these emotional issues are addressed at the right time, then things don't spiral out. Otherwise, what happens if the man is always fighting with the wife at home? He may go to work and meet another woman who shows a little sympathy, who's not going through those things at home, and who doesn't have to bear with those emotional issues. Then tomorrow, then the relationship starts going sour. So it goes south even more. So counseling has its own value. Now, coming to your question, Ekta, your question about what the government does and what the authorities do. I think authorities are police. So police stations today, yes, they are. It is a challenge in many jurisdictions. It depends on various states and how the administration is there. But from my knowledge of Telangana, I think Telangana police, I have seen, is very, very proactive when it comes to women's issues. I have seen it personally, and I can tell you that from eve teasing to domestic violence issues, the police stations are very, very sensitive. You may find odd officers here and there, which is unfortunately, exceptions are everywhere. But from what it was to what it has become now, I think there is an active thought in making the city safer for women. And I do believe that the authorities are getting more and more helpful. So you should encourage women to go there. But remember one thing, like in every law, abuse of law is never looked at well. So you will lose your bona fide if you actually make a wrong complaint or a false complaint or a mala fide complaint. So do not do that. If you do that, it will be you who will suffer. But if you are a genuine woman who needs genuine assistance, I think the police today is very proactive. Yes, loopholes are there. Yes, the system has its own systemic problems. But the intention is to make it easier. It will take time, but I think we are in the right direction.
Yeah. So completely. So Tanuja, are we like round about the time where we should be
Yes.
closing? So maybe
Yes,
I just
and
have a couple of closing. I was making notes as our speakers were talking about these issues. I think the two very strong things that came across to me was, the first is inculcating, a sense of self-worth. For women, it's very, very important that you inculcate a sense of self-worth, and you know exactly how people will treat you when you ask for to be respected, or you say no to certain things which you don't like. I think that sets the precedent for a lot of relationships, and not only for intimate relationships, but all relationships within a family as well. It sets the precedent, because when you say no to something you don't like, it kind of makes you that kind of person where people get to know ki, acha, if she doesn't like something, she probably just say no to it. So I think inculcating, self-worth is very, very important. And to all the men out there, please look at how your sisters are evolving, look at how your friends are evolving. And if you see these women around you and you see how they're evolving, it will make it easier for you to accept a wife who's more evolved, who's more independent, who can think for herself and things like that. And probably the last point of all of this is, to all the men, is that we've not forgotten you. No, we want to have joint conversations, and we invite more men to come and speak to us and tell us. I recently did a webinar with a domestic violence survivor. He was very badly battered by his wife. His name is Andrew, and it was a very painful experience to have to go through it, because he suffered exactly in the same manner a woman would. So I think it's time that we took the narration of domestic abuse away from gender and placed it on behavior, social conditioning, psychological issues. Maybe when we made those the center of our discussions, and we would move away from these gender discussions of abuse. And probably that's how I would like to kind of close this. And for everyone seeking help, there is help available. Just say the word. There is always someone willing to stand up and help you. Social media is full of people. There are hundreds and hundreds of lists circulating. Call people up, write to people. Don't hesitate, just be brave. So I think with that, I will hand over the baton to you, Tanuja, and thank you very much for letting me anchor this today.
Lovely. No, I think you summarized it beautifully. And I will just say it by maybe saying just one sentence to complete what you just said. There is help out there, but the first step you have to take. Yeah. And that's the most difficult one. The first step, if you are able to do that, the rest of it you will figure out as you go. As we say, if you have to jump from a cliff, it's just that tip. Until that time you are hesitant, you don't know. So take that jump, take that. If you're suffering, if you're not happy in what is happening with you. On that note, I think we will close. I was looking at the questions. More, lot of them are comments than questions. Lot of people are just agreeing to what you're saying, or perhaps adding points. It was all about power equations. It's about the social structures. It's about the slowness in the law. So people are either accepting, not accepting, validating. There are a lot of comments which are out there, but no specific comments or questions. Sorry. Also, the mood which I've seen in the conversations is it's more involving, meaning we are talking about what's happening practically. So I think that's what I hear in the conversations here in the chat box, which is talking about yes, what you're saying, we agree to it. These are the solutions. This is how it is. And the third mood which I'm seeing there is, uh, you know, uh, there are clearly two segments of people which I'm seeing: women who are 35 plus, 40 plus, etc., who have children, who have a family which is already, you're 10 years in a marriage, 15 years in a marriage. They find it more difficult versus younger ones. They're saying, yeah, it's not such a big deal. Why are you making such a big deal? Because the baggages are lesser, right? And avenues, education, all of it. So two temperaments which I'm seeing, that women plus 35 are the ones who are seeking for more help and that push which is needed. So we are all out there. You take the first step. We will just hold you and make it helpful for all of you. On that note, thank you so very much, three of you, to taking our time and doing this session. It was absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
So much.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.